WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're coming to you with Star Communications, Channel 16, Star TV, if you will. Also, WCLN Radio, summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. Remember, you can reach us via email at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And we encourage you, as the show opens today, to call a friend and stay tuned. A very important subject, something near and dear to everyone's heart. We have with us, and I'll start with Patty Santos, 2 years, Child Protective Services, 10 years you've been there, but 2 years you've been a supervisor in that area. And Rhonda Matthews, 4 years, 1 year as a supervisor in this particular area. Ladies, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
It is April, and April always brings to mind pinwheels, flowers, beautiful things, folks get out moving around, but it is also child prevention, abuse prevention.
Yes.
I'll start a conversation with this. Why do we have to have a national recognition and reminder and a state and a local reminder to not abuse children? Either one of you guys.
Well, I necessarily don't think it's a reminder to not abuse children. It's more of the outreach to help clients, families know how to report abuse, know that these are your local providers in your area. These are the faces you'll see when you come in to make a report. These are the people that are signing off on your cases. So it's just kind of, although it is at the national level, it is just a reminder of when to make a report, and that you can make a report at any moment in time, and that these are your children here in Sampson County, so it's all of us that need to keep them safe.
Well, now, how hard is it to make a report, and what should we report?
So it's very easy to make a report, and not many people know that every person in the state of North Carolina is actually what we consider a mandated reporter. A lot of people don't know if what they're seeing that is concerning, whether it's improper discipline or improper supervision, a child wandering along, they don't know if that is qualified as something that would be accepted as a report. But what they do need to understand is there is no harm in calling in to let us know. We have a screening process that we go through, so that when someone calls in, they tell us what their concerns are, and then that goes through an entire process of whether or not that will be screened in.
So, Patty, what I understand Rhonda's saying is that if I see something that just is a little bit concerning for me, maybe it doesn't meet the norms of what my experience has been as a child, or maybe it does, and it was a horrible experience. If I call the number you're about to give us, then a process goes into place.
Yes.
Tell us about that process.
So you will then be connected with an intake worker. The intake worker will gather your information as a reporter, will gather the information, the identity of the family. Now, you don't necessarily need to have that information, but you do need to report your concerns. So what is it that concerns you? What did you see? What have you observed? Other people that may know of the situation that's going on, where the family is located. So just as much information as you possibly can to help us with the process. The more information we have, the better decision we can make. So at the end of when you're speaking to the intake worker, she will take all that information, and then she will bring that information to a supervisor. And the intake worker and the supervisor will then make a decision based on law, the policies, and we'll make a decision to either screen it in or screen it out.
We're in an interesting situation now as we sit here today. There's a bill in the House, as you may know, that's called, I think it's House Bill 295. And it's a bill that takes away the privilege from public schools to not spank kids. Okay, so that bill's in place. However, 115 school districts in North Carolina has said we don't spank kids anymore anyway.
Right.
So what do we need to know about when you think about child abuse and you think about spanking? And I want to kind of get this up front because that's a topic, even as the legislature debated this, there was folks that was on the floor going, well, I'm glad my dad or papa spanked me or beat me or whatever. Then you've got a lot of scientific evidence out there that says that physically hitting a child is not only negative, but it kind of teaches them the wrong thing about how to change a person's mind about stuff. Help us just kind of understand this, because again, I understand it's it's one of those push and shove subjects, but I think what you have to measure is the standards that you guys measure for people, because there's not a big training course. I mean, there's not a degree you got to have before you have a child, is there? There's nothing
Absolutely
in this
not.
So all of a sudden, here's the most precious thing that we hold dear, and suddenly we're doing it wrong. And sometimes we see the horrible experience of that. Tell us about what your sense is about spanking. I can tout you studies, national studies, and you've got them in your head, I know. So, but I want you to get your frank, honest feeling about that whole discipline, punishment, and what is punishment.
So I can tell you right now, whenever we're looking at screening a report in for improper discipline or physical abuse, one thing that we look at is our policy, and the policy is always very clear for us that our law does not say you cannot spank your children. And there is a difference between disciplining your child and leaving a mark or bruises that last longer than 24 hours, and that is our standard that we look at. Would we accept a report if a child has had a mark or a bruise that's lasted longer for 24 hours? Yes, we would. That crosses the line. And we remind clients of this all the time. The law does not say you absolutely cannot discipline your children. I have 5 at home, so I understand the need for discipline. I don't.
Regarding the House bill, brings in an interesting factor of the definition of a caretaker, because parents are caretakers. Any adult living in the home is a caretaker, but would a teacher be considered a caretaker? What would happen if a teacher left a mark or a bruise that lasted over 24 hours? Would that be something that DSS got involved in? I don't know, because right now teachers are not caretakers, but that could possibly change.
But if a teacher did do that, would you guys be involved in it? If a mother or a parent called and said, my child came home and the teacher, and we've seen some of this. I mean, this is not any breaking news. This has happened. Everybody's seen this over time, where somebody goes a little bit, I'll call it haywire or what have you, and they grab the child and you see them pulling them down a hallway, or they smack them across the head or something. There might not be a bruise, but what do you do with a complaint like that?
That would also be a screen-in, yes. We would look at that point you're going into abuse, because even though there might not be a mark, if somebody gets punched in the stomach, no mark or bruise left, that's still something we've got to investigate. Any strikes to the areas like, the head, the stomach, areas that could cause internal injuries, those are very severe, and we would need to look at those.
It's something that always strikes me every time I do shows on children, whether it's foster care or whatever. I think about a study, it's something that's called the ACE study. You guys are familiar with that, I'm sure.
The adverse childhood experiences?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when you look at that and you think about the experience of that child, is there a way when you're either talking with the child or the parents, does that come into play? What their history's been, what maybe parents have done. I read an article recently that talked about that folks tend to parent as they were parented. So, if you got popped upside the noggin, you're likely to pop your kid upside the noggin. May not be good parenting, but you pass that on. Talk to us about how we should view this, and how society should better have an understanding of what they should report. I mean, everybody's probably been in a mall or been in a shopping situation and see somebody with a 2 or 3 year old by the arm, and they hit the ground about every 3 or 4 feet. And
so anything that you observe that is cause of concern to you on that child's safety or well-being should absolutely be reported. As far as the child's history or things that on this ACEs study, any like substance abuse or mental health, all of those things are going to rise the risk level of that child being neglected or abused. Now, as far as the parent parenting like they were parent, that's all they know. That's all they know how to do. But when we get involved with the family, we not only look to see, are these things true that have been reported? Is this stuff even going on? But also, what can I do? What can this agency do to help this family? And often, they need parenting skills. So that is a recommendation that we often put into place, is parenting skills, because simply teaching them better, when they know better, they will do better.
Rhonda, there's also something that I read that talks about toxic stress. And there's no marks with that, physical marks. But these things called toxic stress leaves children in a state of panic. How do you determine if that kind of thing is going on? I can think of only maybe one or two other people that would see parenting problems. It could be grandparents. It could be teachers in schools. Is there a way to identify if a child is under toxic stress and what that is?
Whenever we assess a family, one of the things that we do first and foremost is we interview those children, and we talk to them about 5 global risk factors and try to get information from them, and that includes everything from their overall well-being, doctor visits, is there food in the home. We talk about fighting in the home. Do you see that? So we have these different areas that we talk with them where we get a overall picture of what's going on with them. But after we do that, we then also speak with the parents, and throughout our assessment we do what is called collateral contacts. So if it indicates in our report that somebody may be knowledgeable of the situation who could provide us with additional information on the things that you're talking about, like toxic stress, we would contact them. And we also give the family an opportunity to provide us with names so that we can contact them.
We're going to take our first break. We'll come back. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this toxic stress thing and also the angle of parenting as it relates to social kinds of things that goes on. Other societies parent different than the norms of this society. I'm going to talk about that a bit, if that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're talking to some folks that knows a bit about child protection and child services.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're talking today about child protection. We're talking about prevention of things as it relates to children, particularly those things that may harm them. We're talking with Rhonda Matthews. We're also talking with Patty Santos. Ladies, again, thank you for being with us today. I want to get back to this subject as we went to break, this idea of toxic stress, this idea that children become an apparent victim of their environment. Now, in my mind, toxic stress could be the way a parent communicates with a child. We kind of, in the first segment, we talked about parenting is not a scientifically empirical study. You don't have to have a degree to be a parent. Some people would say that's unfortunate. And some people would also say if you parent as you were parented, that's also unfortunate. But again, we have to have some kind of mentor or model. What do you find when you look at toxic stress, you look at all these other things? What is the thing that we need to do? Because I hate to believe that we're a society that the only thing we have to depend on is reporting bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people have an opinion about CPS, that's what it is, just reporting bad stuff, and CPS shaking a finger or snatching some children.
Absolutely.
So one thing that people don't realize is like Patty was saying earlier, whenever we find that something has happened like that, we try to go every route that we can find to direct families in the right services, whether that is parenting education classes, whether that is anger management for those parents who maybe have an issue with like portraying their anger to their kids. We don't just decide whether it's happened and take children. We try to help them and point them in the right direction of the resources that are available in the community.
Those resources, Patty, when we think about the communities and resources, are they adequate? Are the resources adequate?
Some are. This is Sampson County, rural county.
Absolutely.
We need more resources. We need a parenting curriculum. We need better mental health services. Substance abuse, it's hitting home, and we are not keeping up with the times.
And I think what we need to make clear here, we're not talking about just because you may have a low income or you may be poor, doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It's the things you do to that child. And sometimes when we look at kind of the broad scope of what our society is now, sometimes cultural conflicts exist. Do you guys see that quite a
Yes.
bit? There's been a number of published articles on some cultures that actually marry children much younger, 12, 13 years old and that kind of thing. You know, as a society as a whole, we don't necessarily favor that. But then again, if you have other cultures that are involved, and we have a lot of cultures in our country now, how do you deal with that whole issue? And just be frank, because I mean, a lot of this is not science. Some of it may be your observation based on experience.
Well, here at Sampson DSS, we have to follow the law. So although this is something that is culturally acceptable, and in your,
It may be completely illegal.
it's completely illegal or against in the policy that this cannot happen, and that's how we have to address it. But it's also about educating people. So although this is what you feel it is okay, here it is not okay, and this is how we're going to address it.
Do you feel that we're doing, and not necessarily DSS, but as a society, are we doing enough on addressing that issue and educating people, Rhonda?
No, I think it's something that as a society we need to work on. I know here in Sampson County, at least as far as our job, it seems that we do have an increasing number of Hispanic families as well as the Haitian population. And we come in and we try to provide services to them, and especially for the Haitian population recently, there's just not a lot of services where they can address the language barrier here in this county. So I do think we need more resources, from the state to help with barriers that we're seeing there.
When you think about that, you guys also have a resource that is in place in Sampson that deals with the criminal aspect, where you actually if a child has been abused, the district attorney's involved, law enforcement's involved, and of course Shannon.
Barber?
Yeah,
Yes.
Shannon's involved, and I've had her on a number of times. Is that something that works to your favor as you look at these things, and if you see that, you can kind of lateral it off and say, look, we've got a whole section here to deal with that? How important is that?
Very, very important. I cannot say enough good things about the CAC. It protects the victim from having to tell their story 5 or 6 times to 5 or 6 different people.
And that's Child Advocacy Center, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So they tell it one time, and the Child Advocacy Center will hook them up with resources here in Sampson County, and it's a joint effort, between DSS and law enforcement.
So Rhonda, as we do this kind of thing we're doing today, talking about it, trying to get the message out, those kinds of things, we'll see in April, as we have in the past, we'll see the pinwheels everywhere. What do you want people, when they see that, to think about, other than it's a nice spinning little thing and kids want to pick it up and play with it? What do you really want them to think about? I could quote the national meaning of pinwheel, but I want to know what y'all think.
I want them, when they see those pinwheels, to realize that this is not just an issue that happens somewhere else. I'm from Sampson County, and I know growing up I used to think this never happens here. Yeah. And I think what's so important about Child Abuse Prevention Month is that it lets everybody know here, this happens here, this is a big thing here, and you need to get involved, you need to be vigilant. Also, you need to look out for things that are concerning to you, and you need to report it to keep the children of our county safe.
When you look at your workload in this area, does it get a bit overwhelming?
Yes.
Very.
Turnover rate is high. Our numbers are increasing year after year. And, with our limited resources, high turnover rate, the people suffering are the children.
The behavior of people and interacting with children and trying to understand children, what would you say to teachers today in the kindergarten and the 1st, 2nd grade, I guess even on up to maybe 5th, 6th grade? They clearly recognize stuff very quickly. We've got some very smart teachers, obviously, in this county, and they do more than just teach, they observe. And I know they recognize things. What would you say to them? How quick can they report something too quick? Should they wait and see if say for example, a kid comes in and he's got a bruise on his face or her face or something of that nature, and it's not explainable? Should they just wait and see if another bruise comes in or what?
No, they go ahead and report that. They have already been reporting that. Sampson County Schools have. We have a very good working relationship with them, and if something is amiss or they're picking up on something, they're calling. And even if to say, you might not be able to do anything with this, but I just want y'all to know. And they're calling in on children that they already know we're working with and just keeping us updated about school life.
Yeah, and those children that is already engaged, one of the things that strikes me is the obvious where we're going here with that is that if you have a situation and you have to remove that child, the last interview I had on this subject, there was very limited places that this child could go. I mean, you guys probably may sometimes want to, but you can't take them all home with you. I mean, it's just too many.
That's true.
So that's really a concern. There are people on the national level that say to folks in the big picture area that our system is broken, that we really have a problem because we sometimes ship people out of state.
I would agree with that. However, I would like to brag for a little bit here.
Yeah, please.
The DSS in Sampson County has actually been working very, very hard over the last couple of years to increase our number of licensed foster homes, and they've done an excellent job of that. So it is still a continued issue, and sometimes we have to have children placed, in other counties. But in Sampson, I know we have seen a significant rise. And do you remember the number of how many licensed foster homes?
No, but it's up in the double digits. When before that was unheard of.
Yes.
It's been pretty horrific, and I had some folks on a few years ago, and one of them was a foster care mother. She in her home, and one of the few times I don't really like to have this happen, but one of the few times I had people that I had to really get tissue for her because it broke her heart that there was not more she could do. With that said, the obvious question is, when we look at our communities, what role do faith-based organizations play in the efforts you make for children?
It plays a big role. That's one of the questions that we need to ask the family. What is your faith? What's your religion? And try our very best to place within that.
Is that a viable structure to get help for a child in the sense of security, or does sometimes folks look at scripture and say, spare not the rod or something of that nature, and it gets a little bit crazy?
Well, I know a lot of times, even in our assessments, not just with placement, but we make an effort to ask the family what kind of social supports do they have, and that includes their faith. A lot of times, their churches and community organizations can help us with providing them services like couples counseling, things like that. So we do always check in with that person, make sure they're qualified to be providing these services, but they are also a help to us in the community, especially since we sometimes struggle for resources.
I'm going to step kind of back into high school now. I know at one time there was a program that was in place, and I'm not sure whether it was through a home ec department or a health department or what, but they would actually require folks to carry a child for so many hours or something to just get a mental picture of what that is. Is that something that's a good prevention thing, or does that not even relate to what a parent is? Obviously, it's not the same thing, but it gives them a physical aspect of it. What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard of that used in a while. I'm not sure.
It was around at one time.
I did it as well. I can remember that.
I was thinking, I know I didn't read that wrong.
I know that I did that as well. I think the requirement there for that activity is to show students how much time they have to spend with that child and to bear that in mind.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Okay. I want to come back and kind of follow that because I'm thinking you might have something to say about that. Give a little personal experience with it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back in a moment. Time kind of goes fast. We're about halfway the show. If you know somebody, you think somebody needs to look at this, please give them a call. Tell them to tune in. We've got a couple more segments to go. We're talking about child abuse, prevention of that will be.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody try to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're coming to you from Star Communications, Channel 16, cable channel. Hope to see you at Tuesday, 2:30, each and every Tuesday. The show is about information, education, that something that maybe you need that you didn't know you need, something that you may use that is going to be crucially beneficial to you as we move forward in your life. And other things that we talk about probably do not even equal the level of the subject today, because it's about children, the most important component, most folks would agree, that exists in our lives today. And we got two folks that know a little bit about that, and that's Rhonda Matthews and, of course, Patty Santos. We've covered a lot of stuff. We're about halfway through the show, so I want to make sure I bridge as much as I can in. While we're on break, we were talking a bit about some of those issues, and we were talking about this kind of, and I'll use the term cyclical behavior, where this is what my mama did, or this is what my dad did, and you can pick that up very quickly in conversation about what is or is not child abuse, or is not child neglect. You know, if your parents locked you in the closet for 2 hours when you disobeyed, or if they took you out to what the old terminology is, to the woodshed, then quite frankly, a lot of the studies say that's what you're going to do. How can we intervene with that without feeling like that we're getting into parents' business? And I understand that marks and the protocols and all that kind of thing, but just from your heart, do you have those times that you would just like to reach out and thump somebody on the top of the head and say, have you lost your mind?
Yes.
Be honest.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely have those times. We've seen it. We've seen the generational pull.
Yeah.
We've worked with mothers when they were children, and then their children, and then those children are now pregnant. So it's definitely a generational thing.
And you do, I mean, we all, I think, understand that parents, like anybody, they need time, and sometimes the stress of job, the stress of, especially if it's single parent families and those kinds of things, it sometimes gets tremendous. But at the same time, they have to back off and realize, my most important job in life is that of a parent. Am I overstating that by any minute?
No, I think that becomes very hard for the parent to see that when they're addicted to substances, when they're have other mental health issues going on. So it becomes hard to see that when you're so clouded.
And since you mentioned that, I want to kind of turn the page here very quickly, not necessarily going away from the subject of abuse, but kind of getting a little bit deeper in it. We've had a number of opioid summits in this county. I was in one in Duplin County the other day, and we've done, I think, at least 2 here I'm aware of in this county. Drew a pretty large crowd. A big issue, and some of the stories and some of the news reels of that see parents that literally are comatose, and their kids sitting in the back seat, in a child seat, and an officer may be patrolling or what have you late at night, and they'll see this car, and here's this kid, and they're locked in the car. How does normality rationalize that abnormality? How do we as a society supposed to deal with that without just completely going, wow?
I think one of the issues there is a lack of services. I think we do sit back and go, wow, and I think the only way to address that is to get more services in place for substance use prevention. I know in this county alone in 2018, 44% of our cases that we investigated involved substance use. And our
some kind.
Of some kind,
yeah.
Yes. And our numbers are just, they're rising every year as far as how many reports we do screen. So education and prevention for substance use, we need to see more of that. Because other than that, I think we will still continue to just sit back and go, wow, if we don't get something in place for that.
And that incident that you described so well is happening here in Samson.
And a lot of people don't understand that, do they?
Yeah.
They don't understand that it's happening. Literally, it could be their neighbor. It could be somebody nearby. It could be somebody they know through somebody else. But it's real, and it's not just something that's New York, Philadelphia, Chicago.
No.
It's North Carolina,
Yes,
and it's
it
rural
is.
North Carolina more than anywhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have in place that if somebody says, well, yeah, I suspect that, that there's these parents, I saw them the other day, and I've seen them 2 or 3 times, and they appear to be having trouble, and just whatever the signs and signals are, can they call you and say, look, I don't want to be seen as getting anybody else's business. I don't really want to tell you who I am. Tell us how much or how far they can go without actually putting themselves forth, because most of the time folks don't want to come from behind the curtain.
Do you want to do it?
Sure. So whenever they call in, they can say that. They can say, I do not want my information known. We would like to have it in case we have any follow-up questions for the safety of the child, but they can choose to remain anonymous. And we are not allowed to give that information out to anyone. And I want families to know that, because we get that question a lot.
Not even if you're subpoenaed to do that.
Yes, even in court documents, that has to be redacted.
Yeah.
The reporter information has to be redacted. So what I would say is, if you have that concern, please call in. You do not have to leave your information. We would like to be able to reach you, but we cannot give that out to anybody, and we tell our clients that all the time. I will say, clients like to guess, and they will guess and they will assume, and they say, I know that you made this report, but I can guarantee you they do not hear that information from DSS, because we are not allowed to give that out. So we are able to maintain your anonymity.
Do you have the occasions that, and I guess the question would be, is it okay if somebody suspects something but they're not really sure? Is it best to err on the side of reporting rather than to just hold back and not say anything?
Yes.
Always.
The law even says any report made in good faith, you're protected from that.
Yeah.
And so that becomes then paramount to a day later, the child, is found in a homicide situation, and you didn't. My question would be today to folks listening, could you live with that, knowing you could have reported it and maybe saved that child's life?
Absolutely.
Is it just that severe?
It is.
I'm not
It
trying to
is.
increase the calls you guys get. I'm just saying. I want to.
It is. We have a procedure, like she said, strict guidelines. So don't worry about maybe they're not going to look into this. Let us worry about that. If you have a concern, you call in and you report it, and then we'll be the ones screening it in or out based on the policy.
What's the number, and is it a number that somebody locally would answer, and is that number accessible after quote hours?
Yes, it is. The number to social services is 910-592-4200, and they would need to ask to speak to the intake worker.
Okay.
After hours, you would call communications, which is 592-1151,
Okay.
and ask to speak to the on-call social worker.
Okay. So there's actually a live person that answers after hours.
Yes, there
Yes.
is.
592-1151.
1151.
1151. Now, how about when I say after hours, I'm talking 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
I'm talking on holiday weekends.
Holiday weekends.
I'm talking Labor Day.
Yes. This job does not
Christmas.
end.
Wow. Okay, so 592-1151, any time that's considered after hours, or 592-4200, the local area code, obviously, 910. And do you get a local person, or is this farmed out to a phone bank?
It's a local person.
Local
Local
person.
Yes.
Sampson and County.
And they
DSS
basically
employee.
triage the call.
Yes, they get all the information, and then we take it from there.
One of the things we faced, and I've had a number of folks over the years that come on to talk about this, is something called human trafficking. One of the big things we hear in our community now, we hear it on the national news media, is this issue of human trafficking, and particularly human trafficking as it relates to children. And some of this comes from immigration issues, but it's not all about always immigration. I'm sure that may be a part of it, because that's kind of the unknowns. We really don't know. That's kind of an area that really hasn't been investigated. Do we have that problem in this area?
Yes, it's not at this point as frequent, but we have had cases regarding human trafficking, and I think what's important for viewers to know is that we are very close to Fort Bragg. Yeah. Anytime you have a base or places of high traffic in and out, you are going to be more susceptible to trafficking. And so for that reason, because we're so close, we have had some encounters with cases of human trafficking.
I want to touch on some of these things I'm touching on quick and not really drilling into it, but I want to try to get as much in as I can. There's also a statute in place. I don't remember the number on it, but it deals with a parent if they need to leave a child or they want to abandon a child, that you can do that in a rescue squad or fire department or somewhere where the child could be easily found or something. Do we ever have that happening? Is that a real thing?
I don't know about any child left at a location, like a safe location, but definitely of parents wanting to relinquish rights after delivery.
Wow. So there's kind of an abandonment issue after that. You know, you say the child's 2 or 3 years old and you say, well, I just can't handle it.
That would
somebody
be a
leaves it on a
dependency.
doorstep, that's abandonment.
Yes, that is.
But if they leave it in a safe place, hospital or somewhere that...
Within 7 days of birth.
Yes.
That's the safe surrender law.
So there's a time period.
Yes, there is.
Okay. So that's interesting because you do find children sometimes that they're just there or they're, I'm often amazed at how that happens, and you know, granted what a parent may be going through, and of course we're not here to pass judgment, we're just here to pass information. Those are the kinds of things that we need to make sure is followed up on, and that there's a system in place to deal with it. And one of the things I want to keep reiterating here is this 592-4200 or the 592-1151 after hours for you guys. As we move forward with this conversation, I want to try to get into some of the things that adults need to understand and what they need to talk to their children about as it relates to issues that may be an abuse situation for them. So we're going to take a break and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another break. We ask you, if you will, to call a friend. We're coming up on our last segment, and we're talking about April, and we're talking about child prevention, preventing abuse of children, whatever that may be, whether it may be physical, psychological, whatever it may be. And we're talking to the people that sees this each and every day because that's what their job is.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Coming up on our last segment, remember that email address is weshouldknow@gmail.com. weshouldknow@gmail.com. We look forward to getting your observations on shows we've had, your suggestions on upcoming shows that may get us kind of dialed into some things that's affecting your life or that you realize is affecting a lot of other folks' lives. And this show today, talking about children and literally prevention of child abuse. And April is almost a perfect month because you see a lot of people outdoors, you see people at waterfronts and other places, and sometimes you see neighbors and you didn't even know they were there. You go, wow, I haven't seen you since the whole winter, and there's people there. So, but anyway, it's a point that we have to make that this is a national event. This thing called April National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and the quotation or motto that I've got is keeping children safe and families strong in a supportive community. And that supportive community is part of what we've been talking about in all these segments. It's the whole village raising that child.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you would say that because that is actually the motto for the Child Abuse Prevention 5K marathon race. It takes a village. So the theme is Smurfs.
Okay.
So we are urging everyone to sign up, and you do that at the CAC website. The race is being held April the 27th, that is a Saturday, at the Timberlake Country Club.
Oh, okay. And it's going to be a 5K?
A 5K.
So miles-wise, that's about 3.5, 3.6 miles, something like
Yes, and there also will be a 1 mile walk run.
Yeah.
For those that don't want to do the 5K.
Yeah, for those that refuse to run. There's nobody chasing.
Like me.
Yeah. So now, is this a money-raising thing? Do you raise money with it to support advertising efforts, or what is, how does that work?
This is a fundraiser for the Child Advocacy Center in Sampson County.
Okay.
The CAC is fairly new, so they're trying to just, build their funds and get some support.
When you see these kinds of things, if you don't even go out to participate, which you wish they would, but if you don't even go out to participate, if they could make a donation, is there somewhere they could send that donation? Somebody says, look, I don't mind giving you $100 for that, but I can't be there. Can they mail it a check, or do you have a way they can do a transfer or a debit or something?
Yeah, they should be able to do that by calling the Child Advocacy Center and speaking with Shannon Barber. She is the director of that, and she would be able to take those donations. Okay,
Shannon Barber, Child Advocacy Center, and do you know that number off the top of your head?
I do not, I'm sorry.
Okay, but I think they could get to it through 592-4200, couldn't they? So if somebody answers.
Yes,
Somebody
we
will
can
know
provide
it.
it.
Yeah, and then just say, look, I need to get a hold of them because I want to make a donation. The 27th of April, and it'll be at the Country Club?
Yes.
And it's going to be a 5K. What else is going on besides that? You're going to be giving out pinwheels or what?
We're giving out T-shirts to those registered, and it's just, a collaborative time to meet for all the professionals and non-professionals, the families, the communities to go out there.
And you don't have to have children.
Fellowship. No.
But
children can participate.
But children can participate. If you don't want to run, you could pay for somebody else to run.
Yeah.
And they could be in it. Yeah. And you're not running, Rhonda, is that
I
right?
will be walking.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. Okay, so looking at April now, what else do we have going on that kind of gets people's mental picture focused on the important thing about children in April, other than the run? Do we have anything else happening? Are you aware of the schools doing anything? Or
I've not heard, but usually they do like to participate. And also I know that the last Sunday in April, a lot of churches participate in what is called Blue Sunday.
Okay.
Where they wear blue.
That's the last Sunday in
April.
Okay, last Sunday in April. So for our church friends listening out there, they need to think blue last Sunday. And that just basically it's like wearing red for heart disease or something of that nature. So if they wear blue, that's a way of saying I support it. Even if I hadn't donated anything, you can wear a blue tie, wear a blue shirt or something, and that's important. What can the public do when you look at your job? You walk out of this TV studio, it's going to be, like I tell people sometimes, back on your head, so you're right back in it again. What can they do that would best help you in what you're trying to accomplish? I mean, you're talking to 40 to 60,000 people. So you got a big microphone. So what do you want them to do? What is this thing maybe they're not doing, or you want them to do, or even if they're reporting, is there things that you need to know when they're reporting? Is there things when they call in that they should be reporting that they're not? Is there things they're missing? Is there things they don't understand about what you see every day that only you can see that oftentimes they would never see?
I would say be present. So be present in the children that you have, and also the children that you are reporting on as a citizen. So one of the questions that we ask is, what can you do to help the family? So yes, you have reported the matter to us, but is there anything that you can do to help that family in your own will? What does that mean? Listening to them, being there for them. So there's things that we all can do regardless of our job title to assist children, and then being present in their lives. So listening and asking questions. Don't turn the blind eye to abuse. Listen to your children.
And I'm going to ask this question because I think we've got time to kind of discuss this, which to me I think is an important question. What has social media done as it relates to child abuse? Positive, negative?
I think that's a negative.
Made it 10 times worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easier.
Because it gets back to what you just said, that this paying attention to this rather than that.
Absolutely. Not only that, more people have access to your children through social media, and that's I think a concern that has just sprung up out of this is your children are on there talking to everybody, and it's so important to be vigilant of what your child is doing on their phone, on their laptop, because you would be surprised at how many sites can actually link you up to people in your area. And parents need to just be educated about social media if they're going to allow their children to use it.
Teens and preteens are dealing with something now, a word that folks like me, I go, they're doing what on the phone? It's called sexting. That's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Huge.
And it gets kids in trouble. You know, sometimes principals will engage and try to say, look, you don't want to do this kind of thing. Have you guys seen that in this area?
Yes,
Really?
that is here in Sampson County Schools and Clinton City Schools. And what these children are forgetting is once it's out there, once this image is out there, there is no taking it back.
You can't wash it off.
Yes.
It's not like paint on the wall. Does parents get this? I mean, I can understand, you know, people my age and older that didn't grow up with social media. They might not get it, but, you know, the age you guys are, and parents, certainly they ought to understand they need to check that, or are they just oblivious to it?
I think a lot of times there's the my child would never do that factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard for parents to understand that social media and the electronics the way they are now make that temptation for children so strong. So even if you think your child would never engage in something like that or talk to somebody without you knowing, it's important to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, we've had this conversation in the past here with other folks who had talked about, you know, make sure when your, quote, child is on their laptop or tablet that you know what they're searching. But we really haven't taken that to the next level, which is that little device that we have in our hand, which is the same thing as the laptop. We just got it in our hand.
Yes.
Is there a message that they need to remember that this could not only could be, as you pointed out, their child, but they could be coerced because of what's on there? And sometimes I have parents that say, well, my child is, you know, they have these real weird mood swings. Well, you know, the first thing that hits my mind, my gracious, it could be something going on with something or someone they're communicating with on that phone.
Yes, and parents need to look at the children's phones. Look at them. There's apps now that help you make the phone safe or have the phone access only certain sites and only other apps. So just like the technology is growing for social media platform, it's also growing to keep children safe. But it's the parents' responsibility to keep up with that research and look into it for the safety of your children.
Let's reverse that a little bit, or not necessarily reverse it, but let's place the phone now in the hand of the parent. Can the parent, I'm not picking on the age you guys are, but parents that have grown up with these phones, can oftentimes they become so asphyxiated on the phone they don't pay enough attention to their child,
Yes.
and that phone becomes their, even after work, connecting with friends, family, working on something that they're doing at church or whatever, but the phone and the kids sitting there going,
Yeah.
Is that a real thing?
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's absolutely a real thing.
So how do you, or what do you say to parents to say, you know, schedule this, you're going to do this on your phone, you've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I've had people tell me, you know, they'd be working on something or talking to some folks about something on the phone, and it would be an hour, and they thought they'd been on the phone 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going, how can that be? They said, well, it's a normal thing.
Yeah, definitely being more structured. So structure is for children, but also for adults. And also dinner time. Dinner time is a perfect time to connect with your children.
Put them away.
Yeah, put them away.
And most of the time, for some people, and probably more than we would want to admit, if we took a poll, sometimes dinner may be driving in the car somewhere,
Yeah.
or going from point A to point B. Because we're in a society, we've got to be engaged in everything. You know, we've got to be part of this, and we got to be part of that, and you got to play here, and you got to dance there, you got to do this,
Yes.
and it's a constant cycle. And the child is there. Do you see the child sitting there and two little eyes looking? Well, just look at me. Just give me, what is somebody said? Give me mama time. I need mama time.
Yeah.
Not so
And-
much daddy time, but mama time's critical.
Yeah. And when they're not getting it, they will act out, which just could rises the risk of you being reported on and your family being investigated by DSS.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can be assured that if it is, you guys are going to follow up on it. There's going to be a review. The person's name will never be given. If somebody discovers who that person is through other means, that's different. But you're not going to put it out. I want to thank both of you for being here. We're coming up to our close here. Rhonda Matthews, and Patty Santos.
Thank you.
Remember those names? They could be important to a child's life. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a discussion today, and I know I'll get numerous comments. I'm looking forward to that. And in the future, maybe we can add some gravity to this and a little bit more depth in understanding what's going on in children's life. As always, stay safe. And when we close today, we want to say, may God
Thank you
bless.
for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.